Yes. So yeah, three speakers today. We have Wolfgang Kohler-Naumann from the Bremen community. Um, Wolfgang is an activist on a local level in the field of mobility and towns living in and in transition to energy saving and renewable energies. And he's the chair of the supervisory board of the Bremen community, and which is an energy cooperative based in Bremen. And he will present us today how we initiate the active recruitment of women program in the Bremen community, and which has been a very successful initiative. And we have also Katharina Bersbrunner and myself from the WECF. So this program today has been built first on how to, why we talk about women empowerment and how it's still a struggle. It was a struggle for me also on my side, because it's such a broad topic, women empowerment, that it's always difficult to know where exactly to start. What are concrete actions to initiate women empowerment? And for that, we have selected three approaches: mentoring, coaching, and networking, gender training that are more women empowerment trainings that we will present it later, and then the active women recruitment. So how is women empowerment still a struggle? Well, as I said, it's a broad topic, and also gender equality has been given a lot of visibility in the last years. It's a word people have heard about. It's not seen as a threat against traditions anymore, but it is an objective to reach UN sustainable goals, EU policies, some national strategies also. And besides being written in international, European, national text, there is still some reproductions of gender inequality that persists. And for example, the EU Green Deal that is aiming for a just transition in the EU, which is totally gender blind. So how to change that? We have the tools, we have the lessons learned, we have rising good practices, a lot of successful results also from management departments, team of, for example, the Energy Research Institute, Rainer Lehmann Institute, that have really great over years management and which gender equality, or also in gender just energy communities, really inspiring results. And so yeah, what is missing now? We need to change the mindsets. We need to change the mindset of people, of the managers, of the decision makers, and targeting the mindsets of all genders. And to do that, we obviously need to spread awareness, but also to bring hard facts, which are sometimes difficult, because still a new topic and studies are there actually, and for some male-dominated management teams, raising awareness is not enough, but bringing advantages and hard facts and arguments for the business to integrate women can be more convincing. So few arguments here. First, the arguments of pool of talents. The argument of not depriving yourself from a pool of skills or talents. The fact is that the energy sectors need more women, and there is research that shows that lack of gender diversity in company senior position is holding back innovation. It's a research from the IRENA in 2019. There is another study from McKinsey in 2015 that estimated that gender parity in workplaces can increase the global annual GDP by about 26%. Another aspect that can be brought in the discussion is that firms with a high level of women in management position were actually outperforming those with lower numbers of women in such position, and also saw a 30% higher return on their equity and a 30% lower earning risk relative to lower ranked peers. last one, which is well, increasing the gender balance in the renewable energy industries can also promise more customers, because having a more broad and perspective, a female perspective among the staff, can strengthen the understanding of broader target groups and the needs also of, for example, of female customers. So we need to take everyone on board, women, men, and all genders. And women empowerment should not be a woman matter only, because, well, it would be unfair to expect from women to assume the entire responsibility for gender equality in the energy sector. All right. Gender equality is a responsibility of women and men and all genders. And if we actually focus on having women in management position only to achieve particular gender objective and removing men's equal responsibility to deliver gender equality, we'll just participating in reproducing inequalities, right? Which we don't want. Today in the webinar, we have, as I said, selected 3 approaches to provide concrete actions and solutions to empower women: mentoring, coaching, networking, women empowerment trainings, and women active recruitment. So on our first approach, female mentoring program. So basically, a female mentoring program is women that have experience or are in the leadership positions and that can offer feedbacks, guidance, know-how, or also access to new networks to young females who are in an early stage of their career. How can you find a mentor if you're interested as a female employee? It's not always easy. You need to find someone that inspires you, that works in the field that you want, that fits you and communicate well. And sometimes there is a program within the companies themselves, but sometimes there is not. And we have, in the next slides we'll present later, we have collected also a list of different women networks that we can recommend in the energy sector. But also, if you're in the other side, if you are in the decision maker or manager of the company, sometimes the company are providing this program, as I said, but sometimes they don't want to build the mentoring programs themselves. And for that, actually, there is organizations where a company can be member and you use the services. And here it's interesting because it's called cross mentoring. So the mentee and the mentor would actually be from different companies. So that can also be an interesting dynamic. There is also different types of mentoring. It could be one-on-one mentoring where a mentee and the mentor are matched. So either through a program or on their own. It's usually the most intensive and successful because you can really concentrate on the individual needs and strengths. Well, there is also the distance mentoring, as it says for itself, mentoring relationship with 2 parties in different locations. But there is also the group mentoring where a single mentor is matched with a cohort of mentees. So you can also pick the dynamic that would fit the best to you. So mentoring programs are really important to bring more women in the sector. It can open new doors to women in early stage of careers. It can help building confidence, also give faster access to solutions to barriers they can encounter, but also access to new networks, both for the mentee and for the mentor. And it helps also accelerating their business development and find bridges and the shortcuts to success. And overall, it's a strong approach to participating in closing the gender gap in the sector. And so after this brief presentation of female mentoring program, I would like to give the floor to Katarina, as she has been a mentor herself and will present her experience on the topic. So Katarina, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marilise. Hello, good morning, everybody. Yes, so I will report quickly because I have been a mentor for 2 rounds in the GWNet mentoring program, so the Global Women's Network on Renewable Energy Technologies, and that's a very nice mentoring program where young women in the energy sector can apply to become a mentee, and so the network is always looking for more experienced mentors. And I did it twice, so it was, and unfortunately it's not possible so also to have the mentee here, because one of some mentees is now on maternity leave, and the other one is also, she's also busy. But overall, just to share with you the experience, of course, for the program, it's super important so to have a good match. I think that's very important. And here's GWNet, they have a very good approach. So to match the mentor and the mentee, to see not to be too similar, but also to have, to be in a similar sector of in the energy branch, because it's super big. It's, as you know, in terms of the technologies, in terms of management, in terms of legal issues, funding, etc. So it's, I think that's very important. And the second point is also really to be aware as mentor and as mentee, that's time consuming. So to start, and the program of GWNet, it takes always 12 months. And the idea is to meet at least once per month, and ideally one time in person, which is a bit difficult because it's a worldwide mentoring program. And for example, one of my mentee of my partner is from Ethiopia. So that's not possible, but I think that's also very important. And for the mentor, it's also important to think about the motivation. Why should I become a mentor? Because the women being active in the energy sector, mostly they are also suffering on time poverty. So that's very important. And what I have experienced is that it's not one way. So it's not that only the mentee is learning. So I was really appreciating and learning a lot within the mentoring program. So to learn a lot from other fields, from other energy fields, and mainly to learn a lot from the younger generation, because I'm convinced that you, mostly the younger generation, you have the experience of one more generation, so you have more experience, you have more skills, you're much more better in digitalization. I think what is super important, so it was for me really a great experience, and I could recommend it also to other people to do it. So that's great. And as Marilise told, we have many barriers. So we have so many arguments. Why do we need more women in the energy sector? But its development is so slow because of economic, cultural, social, financial, regulatory barriers. So we know also barriers. We have shown them in our last webinars. And so we have to use all our tools and our instruments, and mentoring is one of the instruments. I think that's really inspiring. And what is also interesting is to have a reflection about your own career, to see, but some things are not always obvious. So that was really very interesting. So that's a short perspective of a mentor, and the experience of the mentee. What I got as feedback is really, it's great to have these regular meetings and to exchange on all relevant topics. And sometimes some topics are really unexpected. It's a discussion with a boss. It's it's family planning. It's so it's very broad what can be included in the mentoring program. And it's very important. And of course, it's to share the experience, what I have now, after 25 years being in the energy sector, and also to make clear, for example, to the mentees about their own strengths. It's not always easy to see their own strengths, but here to work it out. And I think that's very important in terms of technological skills, soft skills, whatever. So that was a very nice feedback. And also how to overcome weaknesses. So to identify weaknesses and to how to overcome, so to develop skills, to develop strategies, to think about what could help, could it help to join a network, to do a training or whatever. I think just to do it proactively and to think and to plan what could be a weakness in what step of my career. And of course, what is always super interesting and the main part of a mentorship is the career planning and concrete goals. What is my short-term goal in 1 year? What means it to me to be successful, to have a positive and a successful career? Is it to have a leadership position? Is it to have a lot of responsibility in terms of content, in terms of projects? I think that is much more open than it was, for example, our understanding 25 years ago. So I think it's also changing. So it's very important. So to think about these goals, to check it, to monitor it a bit, and to have a kind of career planning, which is not too strict, but it's flexible, but there are clear points which, for example, the mentee wants to achieve. And yeah, the personal development, so to see the potentials, the values, the interests, to see, well, here's a working place I would like to work, and here's a working place. It's not an option for me because, for example, there is no safe space. I experience some discrimination. How do I address it? And a lot of the topics. So that's very, very concrete. And in most of the mentorship couples and programs, we got the feedback that the mentoring program is very helpful, and also the time period of 1 year seems to fit very well because it's not too long, and yeah, and it was fruitful for both parts, for the mentor and for the mentee. Yeah, that's the experience I wanted to share.
Thanks a lot, Katharina. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to write them on the chat or keep them for later. We have also a time dedicated for open discussions. So yeah, thank you. I hope can motivate and inspire some persons to be either a mentor or a mentee. But I would like also to mention that besides a mentoring program, there is also networks that can be interesting to join, as they can be really helpful also to find role models, to find peer groups, intensive professional also and personal exchange. But it's important to have here also a strategy on your own. So which network is interesting for me? What support do I need? So not to register to 1,000 of networks, but just really focus on the one that can be useful and in terms of time and knowledge also, and to get in real contact with the others. As I mentioned, also finding role models, which is also important point for the involvement of women and girls in the sector. Because for women not being able to see other women who looked and act like them succeeding in areas of interest, in particular in the field of STEM or politics, this can discourage girls from pursuing such careers. So role models are really important because they represent and expand what is possible, right? So we have collected a list of different mentoring program, role models program, and network that we can recommend. So there is this GWNet networking and mentoring program. It's a global women's network for the energy transition, and they act worldwide. Maybe Katarina, actually at the end of our webinar, you could tell us a word about this program, since you were how it works, or yeah, we can see maybe at the end of the webinar. Another, I'm not gonna go in details into all of them, but you can, the slides will be shared with you anyway after. I'll take a picture. Another one, which is 55 Inc., which is a networking community for women in Renewable. They also share role models, and they also cooperate with a dedicated recruitment agency to make sure that more women access the renewable sector. Most of them are free of membership is free, but sometimes it's €50 a year. If the mentorship is for a year, I think it's okay. Other ones could be the Energia one, which works on the intersection of energy access and women economic empowerment through its Women Economic Empowerment Program, and also act worldwide. Another one, which is High Five Girls. It's a mentoring program based in Denmark that are pairing girls with women role models in science, and they also include renewable energy sources. And it also enables these women role models to have access to new networks between each other. And also the two last ones, so the MOVE and the BCC, are two programs that I was mentioning before, when the companies are not willing to create themselves a mentoring program, but rather get a membership to a program that does that for them and puts people in contact, mentees, mentor, cross-mentoring between organizations or companies. So yeah, there is a MOVE one, which is based in Germany, and then the BCC, which is worldwide. But once again, this will be shared with you. Now I would like, we will go into our second approach, which is women empowerment trainings, and I will give the floor back to Katarina for this one.
Thank you very much, Marilise. Yeah, I think with some networks, I hope it was also as interesting as for me, because it's always when screening, there are always new networks. And I think that's also always a positive development to see there are more networks, and they are very diverse. So it's some are very technological, some are very policy advocacy oriented. The women in hydrogen, for example, it's broad. It's with, of course, it's technology. It's with funding, legal issues, etc. I think that is really interesting and hopefully helpful for you, so to go ahead with women's empowerment in the renewable heating and cooling sector. Yeah, concrete women's empowerment training. So what we did, for example, we did a survey Europe-wide and we asked renewable energy communities and cooperatives. We did it in cooperation with RHC, the European Alliance of Energy Cooperatives, and we asked engaged people in energy cooperatives, so board members, supervisory board members, employees, members anyhow, regarding gender. And one question, for example, was how do you see the relevance and importance of gender instruments and more gender equality in your energy community? And it was a very high number that people said it's very important, that it was about more than 65%. It's important or very important. That was the one question, so the wish. And then we asked, what do you do so to increase gender equality? So and here we saw that not many tools and instruments are implemented. And then the question was, what do you need? And here the answer was, what you see here is that they need trainings. They need women's empowerment training. So really, so to to empower women in certain topics, and also, of course, to find out what is needed in your concrete community. For example, when we talk about a community, when we talk about an energy utility company or whatever, which entity, or maybe a municipality. So what is needed to fulfill and to address the aim to have more women in the organization and to have more women in management position. And that is a very concrete answer that, for example, it's very important to have trainings on entrepreneurship. So it's so the first priority is not, for example, technology, so where we often discuss, so we need more women in STEM. So it's really so entrepreneurship in the energy sector, which business model can be developed in the renewable energy sector, what can be successful, what has perspectives in the future, for example. That's has a very high priority. And also second is leadership. So it's that comes together with self-confidence and self-awareness. So to have trainings on leadership, to be interested, to have a better understanding about leadership, to learn more about, to be a good leader, to be a role model. That's also, there is also a very high need for trainings for women in leadership. And well, rhetoric and argumentation, that's also very important, where high relevance is seen for trainings. So that's these skills seems to be, regarding the survey, very important for women's empowerment trainings. And of course, that was also very important, is to have very concrete technical trainings. And here it's also important, so to have concrete training. So, for example, talking about heat pumps, is it the planning of heat pumps? Is it the installing of heat pumps? Is it to have a good overview, to see the potential of heat pumps? So that's for all technologies very important. So not to have this broad training, but really to be very precise and to see what exactly is needed for the women in their organization. For example, as an energy cooperative or energy community, it might not be necessary to be able to install heat pumps, but to be able to see the potential of heat pumps, to really understand how is the technology and the mechanism of heat pumps, and to plan it, and to have partners for the installation, for example. So to be very clear about that. And it's the same about the solar technologies. And yes, for biomass, for district heating, which is a big issue because it's more an infrastructural project and approach. So you have to include villages, many households. So here to see what is needed. So it's also to distinguish between the planning and the implementation. And for example, for geothermal. And here additionally, we have one point, it's fundraising. So that's not technology, but to see which funds are available. It's also a very, very important skill. For example, as for us, as WECF, we are an NGO, so fundraising is super important. And here it's also crucial to have concrete trainings on that. So that's one strand, one line for empowerment. And the networks shown and presented by Marilise do a lot here on trainings, for example, or also partners, trainers, we will show them later. There are a lot of trainers with a focus on renewable energy and women's empowerment. And sometimes it's also important as a strategy to have women, to have trainings only for women, since it's important to organize a safe space without discrimination, without maybe big experienced gaps in knowledge, etc. And so that also needs to be decided in which way the trainings will be organized and facilitated. That's just an overview about the trainings for women's empowerment. Okay, and here we go. So, and so the next part, that's gendered technologies. So we wanted to include this point here. Gender technologies, it's a pretty new point, and we haven't discussed it in the last webinars, and so we planned and we wanted to address it today because it's a pretty new issue and it's still a niche. And when we talk about technical trainings, and especially for the renewable heating and cooling technologies, we think it's important to bring up the topic of gendered technologies, because we know what we have shown is that gender inequalities exist in access and control of energy, in decision-making processes, in financial and in political issues, and also, for example, in the spatial inequalities in the allocation of energy. So who owns land, who owns buildings, for example. So we have addressed it. And that's very important. And there is one topic, it's gender technology. And so many people think so technologies are gender neutral, but well, we know that there is no gender neutrality, not in technology. Sometimes we talk about gender neutral tools, but normally it's constructed by men, and it's a male domain. So that's a very general statement what we are doing here. But we wanted to address this. And so the question is now how to deal with technologies made by men, most often for men, and how to ensure that we have gendered technologies, to ensure, for example, that there is a gender assessment before developing technologies. And as I mentioned, so this topic of gender technologies, it is still a niche, and it focuses mainly on the adoption of technologies and on the participation of women in projects in the energy sector, and not how the device is favored by women or by men or by all genders. So that's the question. And because we think it's important when talking about heat pumps, about different kind of technologies, how gender and technology influence each other. And technology normally is shaped. So it's shaped by societies, it's shaped by interests and by norms and relations. And normally, as we state, is since we are in an androcentristic world, so it's shaped with a very strong male influence because of different historical, political, cultural contexts, and the design and the meaning they are created within the gender relations present and may reflect pre-existing gender inequalities. Well, I know that's a bit theoretical, but as I mentioned, we wanted to address it. And on the other hand, technologies themselves can also shape gender relations. So that's one approach. And so we don't have concrete examples in the energy sector. Maybe you have examples, but we have some examples. You find it in this book here. It's Invisible Women. So there is a big issue about gender data gap. And for example, two examples is that if you play piano, so the whole instrument is made for male fingers and hands. So that's when developing the instrument. And as a second point is for the airbag and for seats in cars. So normally for the development, for the seats and for the airbag, also the average size of male bodies are used. It's just, and yeah, that's what we wanted to show here. And we see still in the energy sector that solar PV systems are still perceived as male technologies. That's one point. what, for example, when discussing, that's very interesting that we often hear that it can be interesting to have trainings for women on balcony modules, so a smaller sized technology, so that can be framed as more female. And what we also see is that old traditional technologies related to activities, for example, cooking and laundry, it's also perceived more as male, as female domains. So that's our approach regarding gender technologies. I have to admit it's a bit theoretical, but we wanted to address it. We will go ahead with this topic and put a bit more research and time on it. But most important, what we should do is to face this topic is really so, for example, to think to talk about technologies, to think about technologies, for example, if they have undergone gender assessment. So to check beforehand what are the needs, the interests of the women, of men, of all genders when talking about some technical devices for renewable energy. Yep, so that I'm really looking forward to the discussion on that topic, and I hope it was anyhow a bit interesting for you. That was on gender technologies. If there are any questions, or we can discuss later on, and then we could move ahead with gender trainings. And I think Marilise, you will take over.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Katharina. I think it's a really interesting discussion indeed. We don't think, and I think there is a term for it, which is male defected, which is a strong term, male defected technologies. So they will think of the end use of technologies, but still it's still made and thought by men. Some aspect will be missing to address the needs of the full users. As Katharina said, we have also selected here among our network a few trainers that we can also recommend if you want to start women empowerment training. And we have here Anno Kreuzen from 75 Inc., sorry, which does some, she's a gender and energy expert. She does some training on networking, mentoring, women in renewables and technologies, and more. But she's based in Netherlands. We have also Siam Ben Moussa that does some trainings on decentralized energy system, renewable energy technologies, grassroots communities empowerment, and different, and based in Morocco. We have also Heidi Hjort, based in Denmark, that does some training in social development, gender mainstreaming in district heating project, infrastructure investment, and vulnerable groups. And we have also WECF, so us. I didn't put any name because we have also many trainers in our team, and we have developed different trainings on women entrepreneurship, gender tools, gender just climate financing, gender friendly climate technology, women and renewable technology, and so on. And I mean, these capacity building webinars are also part of our training portfolio. And we are based in Germany, Netherlands, France, and Georgia as well. So yeah, we invite you to contact these persons if you are interested to start women empowerment training. Now we will go to our next and last approach, which is the active recruitment of women. Katharina will start, and then we will give the floor to Wolfgang. Hi, Wolfgang, I saw you joined us. Nice to see you. And yeah, let's, Katharina, give you the floor back.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so recruitment is very crucial. So what we experience is from many partners, energy companies, so that there is it's a target to have more women on board, but it seems to be very difficult to attract them, to get the interest. And so I think the recruiting process, that's very, very important. So it's great to have Wolfgang here too, because he will describe a very concrete example and a very successful example. But overall, talking about recruitment, so we know that the recruitment for women and men is different. So it's there are some studies, for example, for example, approaching men or women for a new job, for a paid job, so productive work, or also voluntary position, for example, is that that men are much quicker interested and engaged. So to say, yes, I would take it over. And so women need more rounds and more approaches and want to have more information about a concrete position. So that needs to be considered for the recruitment process. That's one point. The second point, anyhow, so we did a lot trainings and service now with energy communities, and all over Europe, we see that, for example, the energy communities, they are still, yes, we know it, white, male, and not very young. And so it's, and we don't see in many energy communities a recruitment process or a strategy. So it's really important, so just to have a strategy and to say, yes, we want to have more women in the membership, in the management board, in the supervisory board, and to define and to organize a recruitment process. So, and also to communicate about it. So that's very important. And it means, for example, to use a gender responsive communication. That's one point. So really to address women, to think about the way you communicate, the tools you are using, the messages you want to transport with the communication, and to define very clearly the target groups. So for example, the women, and of course to have some role models, because that's also clearly shown in some studies. That was shown by in our last webinar, in the study of the World Wind Energy Association, that engaged women in energy entities, in energy communities, and energy companies. So if you have already role models and more women on board, so it's easier to attract new women to join this organization, for example. That's very important. And sometimes we do not use the whole potential, for example, what is existing. So universities, women in STEM networks. So there are many women's organizations. There are FEM in Austria, for example. It's FemNet. It's a great network of women in the energy sector, for example. There are universities that organize events for women and girls. And so there is expertise, there is a base, and that could be used also of energy community. So it means a new networks, new cooperations. And what is also very important, since the sector is still male dominated, really to know what is important, what women expect. So to know their interests, to know what is important for women in the job, for example. So what we also learned from studies is that, for example, for women, it's not only a work-life balance, so it's a work-learn-life balance, what is very important. So to have the opportunity to learn more new topics, and really to know it, what is important. And also what needs to be considered is what can you offer, and what it's also what we experienced and what is reported many times is really, so if you step into a sector which is very male dominated, and even if you feel confident and you have a lot of expertise, but what is anyhow super important is to have a safe space, to be secure, that you feel comfortable, that you are without discrimination, that you have not to struggle, to have enough time to speak up in meetings, etc. And here there are some tools like awareness persons, for example, to care for that. to organize trainings for women, for example. So here are also interesting tools. And so it's not very, it's not a rocket science, but we wanted to show here is really to allocate time and budget for it and to go ahead. And what's also very important is that recruiting is a process. So it's not a one-day activity. It seems to be a long-lasting activity, also to go ahead and to build up the network and to spread the information and to have an ongoing recruiting process. That is more a theoretical overview. And now we are very happy to invite Wolfgang, but beforehand I give back to Marilise.
Thanks, but I'm giving the floor directly to Wolfgang here. Wolfgang, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, good morning. I can be heard?
Yes, perfectly.
That's fine, okay. Yes, so I'm Wolfgang, I'm from Bremen in the north of Germany, a 500,000 person city. So for German standards, already one of the big 10 cities in Bremen. And I'm head of the supervisory board of this energy cooperative. We are about close to 300 members, most of them from Bremen and the area around, a classical German energy cooperative. Normally, I would have liked to have Mali here. Mali, she is our first employee in a company we recently created. It's an installation company for solar power systems, and she is building it up. But she has been called to a construction site because she was called in to have her expertise on site. And she said, okay, Wolfgang, you can do it here without me. I have to be there. We need to make sure that the whole thing runs. I will report very briefly on what we did without explaining too much why we did it. Maybe it's then your questions that drive the discussion, many aspects to it. The cooperative has been created in 2014, completely male, 7 members. It has been working for a while, for a few years, completely male. The board, 4 males, the supervisory board, between 7 and 9 males. Then fairly soon, a lady from one of the ecological organizations, BUND in Germany, she was delegated to join the supervisory board because this organization was part of our cooperative. So first woman in, great. And from the very early days, in about every meeting we had, it was somebody would say, oh, by the way, we need to increase diversity. Oh, yes, we need to do that. It's women, it is academic, non-academic, it is refugees, I mean, people from other countries, so international diversity. So we need diversity, yes, everybody convinced. But for years, for 2, 3, 4 years, we just repeatedly said that, but nobody would really grasp any point to say, okay, now we want to do it. And it's only 2 years ago that, again, we were saying, yes, we need to increase diversity. And well, I have an industrial background, diversity, gender things, and so on. And I said, okay, I'll go for it. And that was the moment when I said, I took the decision. I have to personalize it. I'm sorry for that. But that was one person saying, I want to do it. And for me, I wanted to have something which would be feasible, not all diversity on the world you might have, but the most important for me at this moment in our situation was gender diversity. If we had gone for ethnic diversity, we would have ended up with, again, 20 men from different ethnics doing renewable energies, but you would have had no women in. And as was said before by Katharina, I think you were, the whole regenerative energy sector is perceived to be a male technical thing, and men can get very excited about kilowatt peak and I don't know what. So this was the point, yes, women. And then we said, okay, everybody of us in the supervisory board, 9 members, we go out, we ask we ask women around the place, we want you as a member of the supervisory board or of the board. 2 months later, next meeting, any names? No name. That happened 2 or 3 times. And finally, I found out I had the idea there's one woman I want to talk to. I want to attract her into the supervisory board. And I talked to her. She was very interested. And then she asked me a question. She said, okay, Wolfgang, yes, I'm very interested. By the way, I'm also a member of the cooperative. How many women are in the supervisory except for me? And I said, well, it would be you and Katharina. So you would be 2. And she said, 2 out of how many then? Out of 10, I said. And I was very proud, increasing 10% to 20%. And she said, oh, Wolfgang, I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry. I want to see minimum 30% women in that board before I apply to it. And that was, I was really, I was very surprised. I said, well, my 100% increase is just not happening. So, but then I said, okay, then let's do it really. Let's do it decently. And then we said, and these were now more people, we were 4 of us, 2 women, 2 men. And we said, okay, we do a little working group. We approach women and we talk to them. The first approach was, I put it bluntly, we need you as a woman in our supervisory board and our board. And the answer, very, very, very simply, is, yes, what does it mean? What do I have to do? What do you expect from me? So thousands of questions, which is normal from my point of view to know what you are asked to do. And from that, we said, no, we don't ask something, we offer something. We invite people to an offer. We invite women to an offer that we are giving them. We think you are interested. You might be interested in what we are doing there. So we invite you to a kind of little program to tell you, to teach you what it is about, what is energy cooperative, what is the role of a supervisory board, what is the role of a board. Those type of questions, we invite you to participate. And in the end, we ask you, okay, did that speak to you? Are you now interested in using your newly gained competence with us or at any other place? It could be any association, because there are big elements of empowerment, of knowledge in what we were offering. And with that approach, we invited 12 women into that program. The program comprised a number of elements. So first was a series of 3 little workshops or 3 webinars to teach about the legal constellation. What is an energy cooperative in the legal sense? So what is the role of the General Assembly? What is the role of the board, of the supervisory board? Which responsibilities are in there? So that was very legal, let's say, to understand. Then secondly, there was the element of WECF workshop that was run by Katharina, which was safe space, just those 12 women being there, participating, and really approaching the whole thing from the perspective that you know better than I can now report. So Katharina knows that. And the third element was that we said, okay, we invite you to our board sessions, to our board meetings. We invite you to our supervisory board meetings, and you are invited to participate in our weekly Friday morning jour fix, as we call it, where just operational things are being talked about. All those meetings, naturally, mainly just men around. Okay, so those women would get a feel for how these teams, how they tick, how they would project themselves in a situation where they might be one or two amongst that group that they could observe. And the last one was that we said, so inviting to our meetings, and the last one was, if you want, anyone, you can select any one of our board and supervisory board members as a mentor. And this person would would be ready to accompany you for 2 or 3 sessions to just speak about whatever you think needs to be spoken about, giving mentorship, giving technical insights, giving insights into how the teams work, whatever. And all those elements worked in the end. And we did the program run from December 2021 to our concluding nice social event with very good Lebanese food from a lady. The program ran until end of April. So basically this was now January to April, 4 months. That means not too dense, but also dense enough to keep the momentum of learning and approaching the thing. And the result, now coming to the end, the result is so 12 ladies participating. And now we have our General Assembly this week, Thursday this week. And 5 of the ladies, they apply for the supervisory board. It is the entry. 2 of the ladies also said we are interested in understand what the board is doing. So we might later on, after a while, after a little bit better understanding what works, what's going on, we might apply for a board position. Just to explain, supervisory board is doing supervision. The board itself, they are doing the operational work of the cooperative. So there is a much higher workload and involvement of the board members. And those ladies, I guess, I'm fairly sure, they will be elected into the supervisory board on Thursday afternoon. This will build up the supervisory board from currently 9 members to 14 members. Out of these 14, 5 will be women, and the rest, let's say 13, 14 members, 5 will be women and 9 will be male. So that is getting a bit above the 30% that one lady had requested. And also, by the way, with that diversity that we are creating here, also the, as you said, Katharina, male, not young and white, the ladies are in the age of 25 to 56. So also there we have attracted and we succeeded in inviting younger people for the role in the supervisory board. That is where it stands. And as I use a little bit of advertising, we are desperately looking for further women in our installation companies. So if any one of you, or if you know an electrician, a lady electrician, happily welcome at our place. I stop it here. I have 1,000 things to say, but it's up to you what is most important.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wolfgang. That was really a great insight into your process, and I think so practical and so successful. That's so congratulations. And so we experienced that you are a good marketing manager. And I think that coming from 1 to 5 female supervisory board members with a program of 4 months, so empowerment, information. Yeah.
Katharina, I did a miscalculation. It is 6 women and 8 men. Yes.
You have already 1 female, yeah, and that's great. So it's 6 to 8, even better. That's great. So thank you very much, Wolfgang, for sharing it. And so we have experienced that you have been the front runner and being the person, because you told us that you had the target, and all the people being engaged in your energy cooperative say, yes, gender diversity is important, but you have to make it happen. That's very important. And so here you develop really a nice process. It's doable, not too time and money consuming, hopefully. And now you have a great result. And we wish you all the best for your assembly tomorrow, I think it is. Yeah. And so you have more female supervisory board members. Yet, so do you have any questions to Wolfgang, anyhow, to what we have presented today here? So it was very practical, it was very down to earth. So to have the example, to have networks, names of trainers. So it's really so deciding, yes, you would like to go ahead with gender equality. So we showed some instruments, some tools. So here you have the chance to ask very concretely Wolfgang about his process, about challenges, for example, and overall. So I see Marilise and then Sally. Yeah, Marilise.
Thanks. I actually have a question for Wolfgang. When you mentioned that reaching gender equality was an objective from the management board, how did it came? Was it from awareness, from within the community, or just it felt natural, or I don't know, how did this process started initially?
Well, I'd say it's not a very conscious, not a very reflected approach in the beginning. It was, I think it was just like a feeling. It's not right to be just white, just male, just not young. Something is missing. And all the energy users, they are more of the energy users are women. They are applying it all day long. And so it just didn't feel right. And the diversity discussion is anyway around, so we should be diverse as well. It stayed in that very fluffy area. We need to do something, but nobody could get a grasp on it, how to do it. And I think one has to decide for a specific thing. You can't change the world in one instance, everything. You have to start somewhere. So it's the responsibility and the impetus to start with the first concrete step.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very good point, because we always show a lot of instruments and tools, and maybe sometimes it might be a bit confusing because you have to find your entry point. And what I have learned now from you is that it was really very concrete and touchable. So that's really the point. And just to take the decision to do it and then to implement it. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Sally?
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for this nice webinar. And I also have a short question to Wolfgang. Thank you for being here and for sharing your experience. For me, I would like to know from your perspective, from your personal perspective, when you started the program and inviting the women and having kind of a lot of more effort to bring women on board. Did some women talk to you about like what their hindrances or their fears were to be a member of the board or the supervisory board, and what your personal view is why it might be sometimes a little bit harder to get women on board than men, or do you perceive it this way, that it was easy to find men for the Bremen community, but it was kind of a little bit more effort to find women for this board? That would be just very interesting for me to know, because we always talk a lot with women and what are our fears and what we feel like we are perceived, but also to have the male perspective of that would be very interesting for me. Thank you.
Well, I give the answer. The answer, I would say, it's easier to find men, because if I cannot expand on it, but I will keep it simple and short. If we asked men to join the supervisory board, they would perceive it as a needle they could put here. I'm member of the supervisory board.
Yeah.
And if we ask women for it, they would say, oh, member of supervisory, what is my responsibility? What is expected from me? Can I live up to that expectation? Will I be able to do that? So there would be more questions. Men, as my experience, would be taking the needle here, and 3 months after they would say, oh, I need some know-how. Oh, I cannot live up to that expectation. Oh, by the way, I have a family and I have a job. I don't have the time anymore. So they would come up with those questions or problems afterwards. Whereas the women, they asked the question, okay, what is expected? How much time is the involvement? All those points with a very high feel for the responsibility they would be taking.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just to confirm how women and men decide, well, there are many studies around, but one study confirms what you are saying, Wolfgang, that asking women, for example, when recruiting for engagement at political parties, so women ask a lot of questions and need a lot of information to take a thorough decision. And men are much quicker to take decisions, but also questions come later on. So there is also research confirmation on that, and I think you can confirm it with your projects. That's great. Thank you. Yanis.
Yes, hello everyone. It has been really, really nice and refreshing to learn about the initiative in Germany. In the first round of W4RES, we had the opportunity to have a number of energy cooperatives. One of them was the all-women cooperative WINCOOP. Katarina met them 3 months ago. But also we had another one from Athens where a lady was actually the moving force of the cooperative in Athens. And they were facing the more or less the same challenges as Wolfgang described. There was a woman that wanted to attract more women, and then in any case, the situation in Greece is a bit different, because there is a lot of let's say unwillingness to join cooperative mechanisms, since there is not always a very successful past in cooperatives in terms of in the farming sector. What would be very much interesting in the second run is that we have a cooperative that has applied to get support, that is applying to W4RES exactly for this, how we can set up a mechanism to attract more women as members, as part of the decision-making process. And it's interesting, but this is coming from not from Athens or Thessaloniki, but from the, let's say, the rural area of Greece. So it would be great, and this is what more than a question rather than a remark, it would be great if we could use you to share your experience with this cooperative in the second round. And it's great to know. And I can tell this about being not young, male, and white. We can either be part of the problem or we can be part of the solution. And wherever I see people like Wolfgang, I think you're definitely part of the solution.
So, Jan, it's okay for me if you see a sense that I am available for one of your webinars or whatever it is for this cooperative. I'm ready to be there and share my experience, share our experience. And maybe then Mali could be in, and it would maybe even be more speaking to the interested people.
That's great. Thank you very much. And so before we go ahead with Benedetta, I just wanted to share your comment, George. If you want, you can also speak up, because you mentioned or you asked Wolfgang if you did get any pushback from female candidates with your first approach, just saying we will need more women. Just, it's okay if you are women, come on board. That's your first approach. And the second approach is so to empower women, to attract interest, to provide information, etc. And then to have empowered, experienced female members on board. That's very different. And the question is, from your first approach, did you get any pushback and resistance from the women? Say, well, it's...
Yes, I remember one, she said, no, I'm not interested in, you need to translate, Vereinsmeierei.
Yeah,
it's a very special German word.
Yeah, maybe some of our German colleagues. So it's, I have to check. It's really, if you're organized in an organization, you have a lot of legal issues to do and reporting and etc. And it has a negative image, and it's a lot of organizational issues and not content issues, really renewable energy. And so sometimes organizations have a negative image, and it might be too much work on that.
Yeah. And one lady out of the 12, she stepped out. She didn't finish the program. She said, it's too much of this legal organizational stuff. I want to do things.
Yeah.
So she stepped out, however, saying that, and she did one workshop, I'm ready to do a very specific workshop with you on team development. That is her expertise. And it's there available in the background as an active member. So
yeah, that's exactly the point. And thanks, George, for the translation. It's formalities. So it's if you don't have a balance between the content and formalities, and this German word Vereinsmeierei is if so the share of formalities is much higher than the content, for example. But that's so. Thank you very much. Benedetta.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm part of a European project, which is Easy Square, and this is related to energy citizenship and related to what Wolfgang said about the engagement of men being more easier than the engagement of women. I think it's also related to the psychological effect that the energy citizenship as for women, because they don't really feel the right to participate in the market as it is shaped and by and for men. And I wanted to ask if you think the current energy situation, which is more and more a social problem, could change the situation and give women the perception of being more responsible and have more the right to get engaged.
I fully agree. There is I see big social issues coming up, but I think I don't see an automatism that will lead automatically somehow by miracle lead that women feel more empowered, or socially what you call that, socially disadvantaged people will feel more empowered to involve themselves into basic questions of this society. I do not see that mechanism. I do not see that automatism. It will need other more conscious people to pave the way or to show ways.
Yeah, thank you, Wolfgang. I think that's a very crucial question, Benedetta. And yeah, well, I think the situation at the moment, it's so serious, and it might have some chances, because we see now, well, our energy system is not equal and is not just, but now we see the inequality very clearly. And so, but it's important because we have concepts. We have concepts like energy communities. We have concepts like decentralized renewable energy. We have a lot of answers, and but now at the moment we only talk about the next winter, and we are not able to take a bigger perspective. So maybe to have a takeaway is really the concept was what we have to show also how social and gender just they are. But we really have to stress it. I think that's very important, but it needs to be implemented. And I agree with Wolfgang. There is no automatic mechanism. It needs also stakeholders, engage people to show how it could work. But it might be an opportunity out of this very critical situation at the moment. Yeah, Sally.
Yeah, I have another short follow-up question to you, Wolfgang, regarding the process that you just kind of invented for getting women on board. Do you plan in the future to have this kind of process for all applicants, so for male and for female? Because as you said, it might be also good for male people to know what they're getting into and what are their maybe their also. Yeah, their work they have to do for being on the supervisory board. It's not just a pin that you have here and oh, it's great, but you also have some things to do. For me, it was just like, okay, because women maybe ask those questions first and then maybe later, and then they drop out. It would be good to have this process every time you want to have new members on the advisory board, that everyone knows what they're getting on. Yeah. And that would be for me equality then in the end.
No, we have no planning for that. Mm-hmm. If there is a planning that is more related now to the new supervisory board, 6 women, 8 men, to make it work. I think it could easily be, or the danger is that 5 new women are coming in. They are the newcomers. They don't know all the details. There's a lot of history, and they just sit around and listen by some people speaking in abbreviations, and they just don't get really, they are not really onboarded. Mm-hmm. So the next plan is, or the next step is to get them onboarded and to be very aware on our side of the old ones, those ones who have been there for a long time, to always consider there is new members, it's new women members. So we need to take account of that, so that they are really well onboarded. And if that works well, I'm very confident that then those 14 people, men and women, will be the multipliers into other activities of diversity. But first, we need to have the multipliers to get that together. Yes, if I remember the last supervisory board session, we had a big conflict, and one of the ladies was there as observer. She had been invited, and I think she understood. That's what she said afterwards. She only grasped the emotions of what that were going on, but she had no chance of understanding what was the issue. So we didn't take the 5 minutes to briefly explain the issue, so she could relate emotions and issue somewhat more. And the danger is already, men or women, that you lose a person when you don't onboard them, when you don't take them in. And I think this is for the next months.
This is also something, I would agree. And I'm not sure if all the women on board right now agree, but I always find it very encouraging if someone tells me beforehand, there are no stupid questions, and please don't feel or don't hesitate to ask. Because sometimes as a woman, I feel perceived as like, if I ask a question, it's kind of laughed at, or if I say, what's this abbreviation? I don't know. Sometimes then I hold myself back and I don't have the confidence to ask it. So just as a little tip, if you tell those women always and nicely, please ask any question, because no question is bad. This is always a good approach. At least I would feel it that way.
And Sally, I will
Yeah.
take your question as an impulse, yes, to continue with this in empowering learning for anyone who will be joining the board or the supervisory board. We should be planning for that. I take that. Thanks for the impulse.
Yeah, I think that's
Very welcome. Yeah.
Great. I think that's great. So onboarding, so really to have this, what you said, no stupid questions. That is what we always say with this awareness person to take, to be sure that everybody has space and time and feel free to ask the questions what are needed. That's very important. I would take your one last question from George from the chat, and I ask you maybe who is interested to answer, and then we would I would hand over to Marie-Lise. And here we have the question of George's regarding energy communities. Have any of you experiences in developing energy communities in former coal regions or in coal regions? I work on several coal transition projects and see energy communities as a viable solution. And at the same time, that in many cases, it's female community members as proactive. I think that's a very concrete question. So energy communities as a transition concept for coal regions and also for gender just concepts and proactive members. Any comments, ideas on that?
Yeah, George, can I speak?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
George, I don't have experience there. But in our roof organization, Bürgerwerke, in Germany, I know that there are a number of energy cooperatives who are in the former brown coal region in Eastern Germany. So I'm sure they will have experience. Yeah,
I think there are in the regions in Germany, Lausitz and North Rhine-Westphalia, there are energy communities, plan big power plants, etc. So they are like in the transition region. So we could share maybe some contacts here.
Oh, Katharina, you will have the links to them.
To Bürgerwerke, yeah, I can do it. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Wolfgang. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, Wolfgang, thank you so much. I already told you that we talk about the copyright because we like your concept, and maybe we could spread it up and upscale it in Europe to have like a concept for energy communities, because it's really tangible and it's good to implement. So we talk about it. It's always copied out for Begino, Bremen.
Yeah.
But I think it can be very successful. And thank you so much for sharing this practical experience and for taking the time. We know that you are very busy. I think in Germany and other countries, a big climate strike again. And you're also engaged here with your community, and it's a lot of preparation work. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah, and I would hand over to Marie-Lise with some final information and closing.
Thanks, and thanks everyone for this really motivating and inspiring discussion. Just as some few closing words, we'd like to share with you in the chat now a link to a survey to evaluate our webinar. Please take 5 minutes. That would be really, really helpful for us. And I would like also to share with you a few future opportunities that we have with Women4RES that you can participate in if you want to hear a bit more about what we are doing. And we have tomorrow, we are participating in the extended program of the European Sustainable Energy Week with more women in renewable and energy communities. Then there is different events happening. We have also a booth during the energy fair the week after in Brussels. There is a joint networking event happening on the 29th of September. We will also participate in the Ecomondo conference in November. And for the participants of our partners countries, we will also organize capacity building seminars in person, which is to go a bit more in depth into these gender tools and women empowerment in the heating and cooling sector. And finally, there is a nice networking opportunity. Well, it's next year, but it's from an initiative that we are supporting as Women4RES, happening in Copenhagen, so the UIA 2023 in Copenhagen. So thanks a lot to have been with us today, and to also have followed us if you have been with us along this series of webinars. It's the 5th one and the last one for this first round. We will organize a few more in different formats in the upcoming months, but before we will take a short break. So thanks a lot to have been with us, and I wish you all a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Oh, and I didn't take any picture. Just realized. Shall we stay? We stay together. Yeah? Okay, let's close the webinar. Bye bye, everyone.